It is Saturday, January 18th, and this is the weekly roundup for what generally happened with the Bitcoin market this week, as well as XRP, and I'm going to take a look at Solana as well. So we began the week earlier on Monday, and we were trading around this region here, right? So we were trading just about $95,000 essentially, all right? And every week, every month, I look at the same things, to kind of gauge what we could be anticipating or where the key regions would be for the week, right? And when we started off, we were dead set in the middle, right? And generally, you can't really go too far off of that in a sense, aside from looking for the key region. So if you were looking for a new position or even just trying to identify how Bitcoin may move, we look for things such as the sweep of either the previous week low, right? And then we look to rotate the range or vice versa, depending on if we're trading up at the highs. If we were trading around this region, when we started off the week, out of it looked for probably a sweep of the highs, right? Breakout traders come in, everybody's excited, thinking price is going to continue up, and then generally get that rotation back down. Which is actually what we saw right here, right? That's exactly what this was. You broke the previous week area, you got back in, and we slowly just grinded back down to the previous week before that, range essentially. Okay. And then we started off this one. And we did quite the opposite. We basically took the lows here. We potentially put in a larger A, B, and C correction where you come down, you take the lows effectively. Now, at the time when we were watching this live, right, we were looking for this region essentially, with this being a high time frame average and very likely to be met during this quarter. However, we came essentially down pretty darn close to it. I still consider this untapped, and I do anticipate this. You have to at some point in the next coming months here. But it was about 2.5% away from that. And then while we were watching this actually on a live stream on Monday, we saw the actual sweep basically in an SFP, a swing failure pattern, where you fail to swing these lows, keep them and continue lower, right? So, you could call this a liquidity sweep. Sweep is just easier term to kind of put it, but you came down, you swept the lows, right? So for the last several weeks here, anyone that was getting into long positions effectively was stopped out. Most people are not coming in right at the lows here with a tight, a looser stop loss from the low. They're usually putting it right below the low because they're getting in around these, the midline really. The price action comes down to here. Everybody's kind of fearful of looking lower. They wait till the price starts creeping back up, look for something like this, which was probably, like a gold pocket if I had to guess. Sure was, right? So you look for something like that. Where you get the move kind of unfolding. You've got a higher low right into a gold pocket. Maybe traders and everybody may enter here if they were patient enough. Most are not, but they're going to have their stop loss just below here, right? So even right here, you come down, you get stopped out right there. Same thing, re-enters, bam, bam, bam. Everybody lived to breathe another day on these drops because the stop loss was probably down below this region. And then now effectively came down, you took all those traders out up in this region. Anybody that moved the stop loss up, all that good stuff. Now, and generally, once we do something along these lines where you take that, previous low, especially right here, you took even like last month's low at that, we look for a range rotation first, right? Which is what we got. So we rotated the range back up to that 98K. That was the region we wanted to see held. We broke out, back tested that area and continued on. We are now holding above this last high here. Got a nice back test just basically to start off today. Granted, it is the weekend, so I just want to point that out. And overall, I do anticipate pushing up to new all-time highs. However, one thing to note as we start next week, right? Depending on how this week closes, at the moment, we've got a new weekly range basically unfolding here, right? Give or take in this area. And as we can see, the point of control is coming in right at this untapped daily level we left the other day and daily naked point of control. And next week, we're going to have a new pivot, which is going to be the average of this week, right, which is going to be our weekly target for next week. And it is generating at the moment, at least right here. So it's going to depend on where we close. If we just kind of blast through here, then that changes things. I do still anticipate more upside towards 110 to 120K area on Bitcoin. But locally, as we start the week next week, I imagine we do something along these lines, come down to this region, kind of have to gauge it at that point. But if you were looking for an area where, Bitcoin would pull back to and probably get the next bounce to continue higher, there's a lot of confluence stacking up right here, just at about 99,700. I'd probably say in the $99,000 area. And it makes sense on a psychological idea as well, because once again, anybody that's kind of coming in late to the party right here, thinking, the inauguration is on Monday and all the good stuff. They're probably, coming in pretty aggressively thinking we're going to see only upside and stop losses right below 100K, right? That's just kind of the usual for anybody that's not coming in with a game plan and just trying to YOLO long. So anyways, my idea would be we probably could make our way down, whether or not we kind of push up, kind of take the previous week high, all that good stuff there, stop everybody out on the short side. Get a pullback, which I don't think this would be monstrous. Actually, it would be a pretty decent pullback, about 5-6%. That would be enough to rattle everybody's cage, dropping back below 100K, even though that sounds comical at this point. But it is what it is, right? 5% moves to the downside really do shake people up. And usually everybody's kind of on edge right now too, where it's like, is the market going to just rip to the upside, or is the bull run over, right? It's everybody's argument that generally is, they're faced with. But for me, I'm just analyzing the data as it comes. I do actually anticipate, or I am anticipating, a world where we're putting in a significant high around these levels. And for me, I am anticipating, I say the word anticipating, I'm going to be looking for signs of weakness up at this area, especially if we come up and take the highs effectively. Because if we could do something along those lines and we do lose that all-time high once again, this would be just the same thing as we saw down here, a essential SFP, a sweep of the high, a sweep of the all-time high, mind you. With a case of everybody being so bullish right now, this just sets up a huge opportunity. And I do, target all the way back down towards 86K and realistically 80K at least, if not more than that over the coming months. So talking about a potential 20 to 26% pullback. And, once again, not married to that, but that's just where I see things kind of lining up at the moment. And on top of that, just the sheer psychology of the market right now, as you look around and see anyone and everyone just fully, convinced that the markets are going to rip because of what's going on Monday. And while I don't disagree that the markets probably will continue up over the rest of this year at some point, I think right now we're seeing a substantial high being put in, but yet to be seen, right? So I'm just playing that field right now. If I had a, water gun to my head and someone was to ask me if I felt more bullish at the moment, the answer would probably be no. And in just that sense where maybe I'm not saying overall where it's, a 25 to 30% pullback is not necessarily a huge deal. And we say that before we actually get it, because when you do see those 25% pullbacks, they're brutal for the rest of the market. We've seen even just this, smaller 15% moves here knock the altcoins down, 20, 30, 40, 50%. So I imagine if we see a move like that, it's going to be detrimental, especially for, once again, anybody that's coming into the market just full on expecting and anticipating, up only, which there just is no such thing as up only. So that's what I'm looking for here on Bitcoin coming into next week. That's, essentially what we did this week. Even, we came down, we swept the low, we had to put our plums on the table there. I actually took the long right at the low here. I'm still in that long, took profits at the weekly pivot for this week. And I am holding to see if we get to that, that new high. And then up here, I'm going to be considering, depending on what I see, right? So it's just going to really depend, but I may be taking some overall profits off the table for my entire bag, essentially all my positions, altcoins and all, right? So while many would probably view this as a time where you'd be a fool to, take profits, which is comical because most people don't take profits in this game. But, the idea that we'll just be getting started and stuff like that, is going to be kind of running around. So I don't try to put anybody else down in the sense of their views and ideologies. And by all means that, I could be wrong in this, aspect where, maybe we do just kind of come up here, we flip the high and we continue up. The world where I see is, and it's not just based on, the psychological aspect. Once again, we've got a high time frame average, that's likely to be met this quarter. That's just something I personally, keep in the back of my mind at all times. And the fact that we front ran it right here, just kind of, if we came down and tapped that, I'd maybe feel a little bit more like, okay, maybe that was our little local low and then we're going to continue up. The fact that we did not just makes me more cautious. On top of that, in the group, I'll be posting this, but we have a pretty large range up here as well, where the range high is literally the high up here. And if we were to do something along the lines of sweep that region, come back into the range, then the low of that range is all the way back down at 80K. So it's just technical setups here, left and right. So obviously Bitcoin's going to drive the market. So it's important to, somewhat have a game plan for what may happen and why. And that's all this is. It's a game of what and ifs and whens, or if this, then that kind of situation. So it's all about, if we come up and claim that, then hey, we're good to go, be looking higher. Obviously we got a major target up here, but if I see the sweep, I'm gonna have a finger on the sell button. I'm gonna be honest, across the board. If you would like to have access to all my analysis, trade setups, and everything I have to offer, the CVO Academy, daily updates, mid to long-term plays, you can do so with the link in my bio. And you can also, when you come down to hit get access, you will not be charged for the first 14 days. All you have to do is sign up here and you can have full access to everything completely risk-free for 14 days. If you'd like to try that, I do updates over the weekend as well. I'll be doing a pretty big update haul tomorrow night as the weekly closes at about 7 p.m. Eastern, getting ready for the new week. Ethereum continues to put in a bit of a lackluster, amount of price action here. And similar to Bitcoin, we had a sizable sweep of the lows, all right, this week, as we could see here. And then we basically reclaimed that. The key level that I've been looking for us to hold on to in general, right? And I know that we've been basically playing around in this region, but it does still remain the quarterly average here at about 3290. Let's just call it 3280-ish. Now we had a daily naked point of control left over from, I believe, earlier this week, maybe Wednesday. And essentially we came down to that during the the little drop, little sell-off last night in the altcoins, which was interesting. But overall, really going to be paying attention to see how things kind of play out here. Once again, not necessarily getting, as much gas in the tank as I'd love to see. But we all know how quick this market can change on us. And overall, while we're holding at least these lows here, which we did come down and take, I do anticipate looking for things of this nature, right? Where we're looking at, we got an untapped weekly level up here at 3634. We have the monthly naked point of control still. This is a volume target from last month sitting at 3862. And then potentially, it would be a really big move at this point, but if we do get a huge move up, which there is a potential setup here, time wise, I'm looking at this to kind of, if we do see something like this, it would be around the 27th of this month. So in about 9 days or so. Doesn't, don't get married to that time frame, but for me, if we did see that at that and at that time frame, I would look at this as a pretty bearish setup. And more of that to come once again in the group, or even if we get to it. I don't want to get too overzealous with it, but just know that pushing up to about $4,300 on ETH, does set up a potential bearish setup if we do it relatively quickly here in the next 8 to 10 days. So it's just something I'll be monitoring. Otherwise, pretty much just range bound activity. Almost have to say that ETH is in a pretty good downtrend at the moment, right? Where you're putting in lower highs and lower lows. Can change, right? So that's just one thing I'm kind of aware of. And I don't want to get too bearish around support, but it's just really want to start seeing some ground recovered here. First kind of line of that begins at 3634. I think that probably everybody could agree coming up and taking this last high and holding it would be ideal. Putting in basically, potentially got a higher high, higher low, come up, make a new higher high around this swing. And then we'd look for the monthly naked point of control, and then we'd look for 42 to $4,300. Downside major target if stuff starts getting hairy here. One of the major areas I'm looking for is short term, or not short term, but if we start losing the lows here, there's a bunch of things stacked right here at $2,600 ETH. So kind of giving you both ways there, right? Because we can't just get married to the idea that we're going to see upside only. Although I do lean that way, and more so because of Bitcoin at the moment. It would just be this would be a really big move to get, right? So 30%, if we do get it, I'm prepared for it. I think that people would get very excited here once again. And like I said, this could very well be a nice reversal setup, and a sizable one at that, something along the lines of same thing as Bitcoin, right? If we see a big move to the upside like this, and start paying attention for rejections and maybe some signs of weakness up around this area, could very well see a move completely, all the way back down, which would once again be not the best for the altcoin short term, unless you are looking for, some ideal entries before that next leg up. XRP in my latest update, essentially, haven't changed this at all. Many may be viewing this as a little bull flag consolidation, and it may end up being something along those lines. But for me, this box area here remains my target zone, that while we're trading within it, I still have to anticipate a pullback to these regions here. Obviously, this level, back to the 2024 high, which is just that 296 area, I believe, or 290, wouldn't be a huge, blow at this point. But, just something of note here that you could very well see that. We got a, huge push up, not uncommon to come back, actually very common to come back test the high before you continue up. There's a potential for a couple of harmonic patterns here as well. Right. One was this butterfly, which in my opinion is pretty active at this point, with two specific targets, one being the 382, the other being the gold pocket here. So not that that would have to be the only, areas we'd pull back to, because once again, my main eyes at this moment go to 179 here for XRP. And even if we were to come up and kind of take this high here and reach this level here, which would essentially be a new high, debatable on where the all-time high is, I guess, across some platforms, but I'm pulling this from the Bitstamp chart. I'm on the Binance chart here because this is where I just built my, my setups and everything, but I'm pulling that from Bitstamp because even on this Binance chart, you don't even have enough data that takes us back there, right, to 2018. For this, it would have the all-time high sitting at about June 2021 at $2, which we know is not the case. Key to upside is flipping 353, in my opinion. Start closing 4 hours dailies and things of that nature. I think that, okay, from here we'd see more upside. Otherwise, I'm pretty cautious here. I'm completely out of XRP. I took not only did I have my spot bags from 50 cents area that I've scaled out into, I didn't even catch these highs here for my spot bag. I was pretty much at a spot around here. And then I took a shorter term, just swing trade position right around 201. And I got out of it at 317 in, potential for this butterfly pattern. If XRP continues on without me, then by all means, the next targets for it are about 50 to 80% higher. It's about $5 to $6. But for me, I'm going to be a buyer basically back here. As a DCA, idea, you could look for these levels here. For me, I've made, I'm happy with my positions that I took on XRP over the years. I'm happy with the moves I've made. And I've done this multiple times where, I've kind of gotten out at levels that were at least 2 and 3x where I got in. And then I look for a 40, 50% retrace and I just double up my position. Right. So that's kind of my idea with that, is to be able to increase my holdings. Obviously, everybody's got their own strategy or their own game plan for what they're trying to achieve or where they're at. If you're looking brand new to come into XRP, 330 is probably, while many would say you want to get the breakout of the all-time high. I mean, you just know you're at risk, right? You're at the most risk at the highs of, at least these pullbacks locally. Right. And 25, 30% really is nothing most times in crypto, but when that does occur, usually it's paired up with some really scary news. And then honestly, like I said, for me, I actually would anticipate the move back to like 179 in the coming weeks and months. And that would be a sizable drop, about 45, 50%, especially if we do make it to that 1618 first. Now, it doesn't have to happen. And just for me, that's just technical analysis, right? For me, I don't know which way the market's going to go, but I know that there's statistical reasoning why we may see this level here. I got in much lower. I took profits and I secured my, gains here. And I will wait for this region. And if it doesn't come, then it doesn't come and I move on to something else. That's just what I'm going to do. I'm not married to XRP by any means. But on a technical basis here, that's where we're at. All right. I do foresee the next leg up being $5 to $6 though. So I will definitely be getting back in around these regions here and scaling in, even if it goes a little lower, debatable if we'll see any lower than that. But yeah, from here to $5, $6, that's another 200 or 300% move. And that's definitely something I'm, interested in being a part of. All right. Solana here. I took a long on this. I just closed it as we actually, as I just pulled up this chart here, as we took the highs once again. We came down and we swept the lows. We were in this range from last quarter, looking for a range rotation, had a volume target. obviously met and blown through. And I was looking for this potential setup here, which is a bearish harmonic pattern. Now, I will say that the symmetry of this is a little wonky, but I will will note that this is a pretty solid setup now. So you've got a valid shark pattern here as far as the measurements would go. And this is a sequence of Fibonacci. And let's just go ahead and clear off some of this really quick. Now, like I said, the symmetry of this is not beautiful. Generally, I'd probably look to, see if we get a little bit more time out here, and we still may get that, right? Even though we just kind of came up, you took the highs, pretty nicely. This is on the 4-hour time frame, so we'll have to see how things close. It is the weekend as well. So this will be our, weekly high at the moment. Enough for me to close my trade, though. I'm happy with it. I got in down here, and once again, short term. And what is that, 50%? Yeah, I'm very happy with a 50% return short term here, buying at almost $200, right? And I'll look for a lower move again. Same thing with the XRP. So for this specific pattern, realistically, we could see, this kind of push up towards about the 113 expansion all the way to the 124, right? Around this region here. So between that, 277 and 284, we could see that kind of push up. So given that this is Saturday, maybe we kind of get some sideways consolidation in this region here and then come up on into next week. And if we do, still be a valid setup, right? It'd be one of those times where you kind of want to be paying attention for one of two things. Look to see if we claim this all-time high once and for all. This is the one from 2021 for any more upside. Aside from that, I would look for this shark pattern to kind of come to fruition, right? So, and with that being said, assuming we're completed here, but even if we could go into the this area here, let me just kind of box it off almost, right? Let's just say that the shark is validated here, and we start to get a retracement, and you start to close back below this all-time high here. Whether the high's in now or we push up a little bit more, right? One of those times where, I'm not necessarily looking to short Solana. If I do get a perfect entry or an opportunity towards it, I would. And for me, that would be something along the lines of, at this point, I wouldn't short now. But if we start off next week and we kind of sweep this region, right, and I can put a stop loss above those highs. And it would, like I said, it would have to it's going to have to depend. More so for me, I don't really look to short and long a lot of these. I did take the long here, but once again, it was more so like a spot buy. It was very low leverage, if I even put any. It might have been like 1 or 2x, right? Which is a 1x is just spot. And I took, advantage of that. So shorting, I definitely shorted this high over here, almost to the exact low, off of a very similar setup here, if you recall, right? We had that deep crab that went into this region with the specific targets down in this area here. So now we built this one up. I took the long here on Monday. And I just closed this out while I'm actually on this stream. But for Solana, assuming that this is a valid shark here, we would be looking for some moves back down to this region. All right. So depending on how we play around up here, if you start to lose that all-time high, and mind you, we're below it right now. The key level targets of this is the 0.5. All right. And that's also right at our B point as well. This area here offers up the opportunity to turn this into a bullish reversal. But otherwise, this is the key level to watch. It would be 220, because if you lose that, there's no gold pocket in this scenario. It's usually straight down to the 886. And ultimately, the target of this is the 113. All right. So that is a setup that I'll be looking for. Once again, not married to it. If we start to claim the high, then this is invalidated. What I find interesting is that, with this potentially unfolding here, you got, targets of this are about 45-ish% lower. It lines up with the XRP's kind of targets that I've mapped out as well. And everything kind of hinges on that Bitcoin chart if we, come up and kind of put in that local high. So it's just all things that, start to align together. They don't have to play out as well, but like, it's just the things that I kind of tend to look for ahead of time so that I'm not behind when things start to unfold, right? So I hope that all makes sense. Once again, if you would like access to the CVO Trading Discord, where I have several channels here where I put short-term analysis, long-term analysis for Bitcoin and Ethereum, as well as a ton of altcoins. Altcoins are more so going to be mid to long-term plays, so I'm not putting up a bunch of day trades that, many people can't, really pay attention to or utilize. A lot of this is for the average person that still goes to work or has a day job or a day life, doesn't want to be paying attention to charts all day. These are long-term plays, such as even, the Solana play, right? Where I had mentioned that, this is where I entered the trade here. And then I just put into the short-term analysis here that I ended up closing that trade right here. So you can see where I got in 177, closed it at 254, a little bit of leverage behind that. Once again, I try not to go too much leverage on some of the alts because you just don't need it. Anyways, aside from that, we've got the CVO Academy. I do have a high risk, low cap area where, definitely beer money is what I always call it, something that, can go to zero. But, some people like to play with those. The CVO Academy's got all the videos of the tools and resources and how I utilize them daily. And then I have exclusive member only market updates and, things of that nature that come around in here. And then we have a few areas where the community can, interact, put out their chats. We can, put out charts. I, get questions all the time. We have some fun, just kind of bouncing things back and forth there. So if you're interested in joining, once again, I'll have another new update for Sunday evening, tomorrow night at the end of the week. Monday, the stock market is closed, I believe, due to a holiday. We got the inauguration coming up. So we got some big stuff coming up this week. So if you'd like to have early access to that before any of this public videos go out, be sure to join the link in my bio. And once again, you do have a 14-day risk-free trial. Try it. If you don't love it before you get charged, obviously, feel free to cancel. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all have a great weekend. And until the next time, everybody, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.